Hello and welcome all of you to Unity Spiritual Center of Windsor's online service. So for those of you who may not know, Windsor is located in Ontario, Canada. So I'm thrilled to be here with you all today. And when you consider that there are more than 7 billion people on this planet, the fact that we are the ones that have been drawn together to learn, to grow together, to celebrate our oneness, it is such a gift to be with you. So today, Reverend David Old is continuing his talk series on Adyashanti's book. It's called Falling into Grace. And the subtitle is Insights on the End of Suffering. Yes, that sounds really good to me and to you, I'm sure, as well. And his talk title today is Uniquely You. For our first song today, we are thrilled to share Get Ready My Soul by Daniel Nahmod. Thank you, Daniel.
Get ready, my soul. I'm diving in. Get ready, my soul. I'm diving in to the deepest kind of love, to the sweetest kind of life. Get ready, my soul. Everything I've ever done, everything I've ever seen, everything I've lost or won, everything I've ever dreamed has brought me here to the present moment, here to a new beginning here. And I'm seeing life so clearly now. Get ready, my soul. I'm diving in. Get ready, my soul. I'm diving in to the deepest kind of love, to the sweetest kind of life. Get ready, my soul. 'Cause here I go, deeper, deeper, deeper than I've ever been before. Here I go, closer, closer, closer to my sacred source. Here I go, deeper, deeper, deeper than I've ever been before. Here I go, closer, closer, closer to my sacred source. Get ready, my soul. I'm diving in. Get ready, my soul. I'm diving in to the sweetest kind of life. Get ready, my soul. Get ready, my soul.
Get ready indeed. Diving in deep. Love it. Thank you, Daniel. Now, let us listen to our beloved minister, Reverend David, Uniquely You.
So welcome everyone. I'm Reverend David Old, and I'm the senior minister at Unity Spiritual Center in Windsor, Ontario. And this is our Sunday, online Sunday service. So let's go ahead and as we always do, let's open in prayer. So I'm going to invite you to just bring your attention to this place and this time and let go of any thoughts that you have had about things going on before you tuned in here, or about things that are going on tomorrow. We just bring our attention fully, completely to this now moment. And in this now moment, we know that we are completely, totally enclosed and just completely surrounded by spirit. And we live and we move and we have our being in that spirit. And in that knowledge, in that truth that we are one with spirit and we're one with each other, we open in this prayer. And that is, loving Holy Spirit, open our hearts and open our minds to receive the wisdom that you have for us. We are so grateful for this day. We are so grateful for our spiritual community. We're so grateful for each and every person that tunes in today. So help us to be totally receptive to your wisdom, which is always there for us. And help us also to be responsive to your guidance. And with a feeling of great gratitude, we just say thank you, thank you, thank you. And we pray this in the name of the living Christ presence, the truth of who we are, and so it is. Amen. Well, again, thank you for being here. Really good to have see you out there. So we're continuing a series of talks based on Adyashanti's book, Falling into Grace, Insights into the End of Suffering. And last week, we were on chapter 8, and that title was The End of Suffering. And he opened that particular chapter with this opening. He says, there's one thing about which I would like to be completely clear. If we want to stop suffering, if we really want to bring an end to suffering, we've got to wake up. Waking up means, he says, awakening to the truth of our being. And it also means waking up from a whole host of illusions. Waking up from our ego in all of its manifestations. You know, in unity, we would say that we wake up to the truth of who we are. We would say we wake up to our Christ consciousness, and we wake up from our illusion, our ego, and all of the illusions of the ego. Last week we were looking at Adya's, he told his story about how he was awakened and how it took such a long time. Well, it wasn't that long, but he was 19 when he started, and he was working so hard with a Zen teacher to reach this enlightenment. And 4 long years, and he finally just hit a wall, and he realized that after 4 years he didn't know any more than he did when he started. And so when he finally hit this brick wall, as he called it, and he was just totally defeated. He realized he didn't know nothing, and he had a revelation. And this great revelation that he had was that he realized, he said, I realized I was both nothing and everything simultaneously. I was both nothing and everything simultaneously. He woke up to the fact that he was not his ego, or any of his opinions, or any of his thoughts about himself, or any of his roles. He was not that. He realized the ego was just an illusion. But what he woke up to was the fact that he was everything. He was pure spirit, that there was only one presence and one power, and he was part of that. And that's what he woke up to. We talked a little bit last week about within our spiritual different traditions, there's this idea about dying before you die. And it's found in both Sufism and in Buddhism. And Eckhart Tolle said this. He said, death is a stripping away of all that is not you. The secret of life is to die before you die and find that there is no death. So the death is stripping away of all that is not you. Again, it's your ego, your opinions, your thoughts about yourself, your judgments. All of these things really are just ideas, and they have no factual base. Many of your spiritual leaders say that there's nothing added by becoming enlightened. Enlightenment is actually just the false being stripped away. Aja, at the end of of that chapter that we were studying last week, said, what you are can't die, but the idea of yourself is destined to die. There is absolutely nothing that will take the place of really stopping and dying before you die. This is not a physical death that he was talking about. This is a death of who you think you are, of your past and of your future. All of that exists in your imagination. I also brought in the words of Jesus found in the third chapter of John. And in the third chapter of John, this is where Nicodemus comes to Jesus in the middle of the night. And Jesus speaks these words. He says, you must be born again. And he was talking about the same thing, I believe, that Aja is speaking of, that Eckhart Tolle is speaking of. To be born again, something has to die. And so Jesus was talking about being in the flesh and being of spirit. And when we're in the flesh and when we're in our ego, it's that part of us that has to die. We have to realize that the ego is not our master. It is spirit that is our master. And again, ego is a very good servant, but a very bad master. So we did discuss this idea of dying before you die. So now we're exploring chapter 9, which Aja calls True Autonomy. And I made my talk title, Uniquely You. So Aja opens this up, this particular chapter, and he said that he referred again to his enlightenment experience, and he said, when he first started his spiritual journey, he says, I imagined that enlightenment was the goal and the end all. Most of what I'd read in spiritual literature and heard in spiritual teaching reinforced this idea that once you get to enlightenment, it's essentially over. You've gone as far as a spiritual life can take you. But he said, but I discovered, however, actually things were quite different. I discovered that things were quite different. So last week again, we explored his awakening experience, and he explained it or described it as awakening to this feeling of wholeness, this feeling of openness, this feeling of completion, this feeling of being one with all of life. And he said he had this feeling, this whole new perspective of life went on for several years. After a couple of years, he had this feeling of movement, a feeling of more to come, a realization that spiritual unfoldment actually has no goal called awakening or enlightenment. There's no end point to spiritual unfoldment. Spirit is constantly manifesting into something new. August says spiritual awakening is the ground from which a whole new movement of spirit starts to occur. And that new movement that comes out of our own sense of freedom is what Agya calls awakening into our true autonomy. It arises in us when we truly grasp the fact of our unity, of our oneness with all creation, and the eternal unfolding of our life, that whole unfolding nature of our life. Anyway, I think Fillmore was alluding to the same idea when he says in Keep a True Lent. He says the higher life is a higher state of mind. It exists as the soul of God. And you know it when you realize, I am the Son of God. You bring this life into manifestation by acting from the divine idea of life. The consciousness of eternal life places one in the stream of life that never fails. So when we have this consciousness that life is eternal and that we are part of that eternal unfolding of life, then we get into the flow of life, and life just unfolds naturally for us. But at the same time, there is still this human element, the body that is born into time and space. Agya says he came to realize that the ultimate purpose of being born into this human body in space and time was not simply to realize this enlightenment, but it was for the purpose of something quite different. He says, enlightenment makes another movement of consciousness possible. This other movement of consciousness is not really a waking up from our humanity. It's not a waking up from time and space. It's not waking up from an individual identity. It is almost the opposite, he says, where spirit comes into form and discovers its true autonomy. This unique expression of divinity, it discovers its unique expression of divinity in the body in which it is incarnated. You know, it's almost the opposite, where spirit comes into form and discovers this true autonomy. Life wakes up, and life wakes up to itself. Your life becomes an expression of that which is inexpressible, unexplainable, and indefinable. Adi uses the lives of both Jesus and the Buddha to illustrate his meaning of true autonomy. Both Buddha and Jesus both knew their oneness with all creation. They not only realized their relation, they not only realized this oneness, but each of them had their own unique way of being themselves, being fully themselves. As Ajak described it, he said they stood in their own two shoes. Both the Buddha and Jesus occupied fully their lives, and there was a willingness to live out their unique expression of oneness and their unique expression of God in form. They each expressed a way of being that was totally new, that was totally unique, They were unique expressions of spirit. They didn't come from a line, but what each of them, both Jesus and the Buddha, they brought something totally new and fresh into the world. Jesus was a very dynamic, fearless person who allowed spirit to manifest through him as spirit wished. He he impressed people so much that people were when they started describing him and what he was, they were describing him as actually God incarnated. God, he made that much of an impression. He made such an impression that after 2,000 years, we're still writing about him, we're still talking about him, we're still worshiping him. Oh, so but Anya says it was both Jesus and Buddha's willingness to be who they were, not only in essence, but also in their unique human expressions that really compels us. It really speaks to us throughout these centuries. That willingness to allow spirit to completely unfold in them. You know, there's the story of the Buddha was that he became enlightened as he was sitting underneath the Bodhi tree. And this was after he had spent years and years. He had given up his family. He had given up his wealth. He was wanting enlightenment, and he had spent all of these years in austerities and almost starving himself to death. And one day, when he was just skin and bones, he was sitting under the Bodhi tree, and he received his enlightenment, and he saw all of life through a totally different perspective. But the thing is, he had this wonderful, marvelous meditative experience of bliss and oneness, but he didn't stay under the Bodhi tree. He got up and he went out and he taught and he gathered disciples, and he created the whole religion was evolved around him, that's still practiced by millions and millions of people today. So neither of these figures move through life as we tend to imagine it. You know, there's movies that you can watch I know you've watched them of Jesus's life, and maybe movies of the Buddha's life, but we know that these movies have a tendency to make them very look very saintly and otherworldly. And I mean, we see Jesus walking on water and performing miracles. But if you really read the stories, especially of Jesus, they paint a very different picture. It's a life that the life that they paint is quite contrary to the spiritual norms of his time. Jesus was he was totally unconventional. I mean, during a time where you weren't supposed to be, men weren't supposed to be speaking to women, and I mean, he was having dinner with women. He was associating with prostitutes. He was tax collectors. His disciples weren't nobles. They were common, ordinary folk. They were fishermen and tax collectors. They were just normal, common, everyday people. And he went to parties and he even made wine. And anyway, it's not quite the saintly picture that these movies I think try to get over. But also, Jesus was could show anger. I mean, real anger at times. And of course, the most notable case is when he went into the temple and he overthrew all of the money changers' tables in the temple. And then he was a man that had some very intense emotions. He was very human. in the Garden of Gethsemane, right after the last Passover, and before he was arrested, he knew that his destiny was to be crucified. He knew it. And there's that scene in the Garden of Gethsemane where he was literally, they said he was sweating both blood and sweat. He was praying so fervently, and he was praying so fervently. He was praying and asking God that if it was possible, if there's any way that he could get out of the crucifixion. I mean, he was begging God. And this is such a, such a you could just get this picture of him being so anguished. So Jesus had his feelings, he had his anger. Because he knew of his divinity, but he was also knew of his humanity. He was a spiritual being having a human experience. So Jesus knew he had to go through certain things because Spirit had taken human form in him. He knew he was both human and divine. And to be human is to open ourselves to some very human experiences. So Jesus says that, or Agya says that Jesus is revered not because he never felt anguish or frustration. He's revered because even though he felt challenged at times and felt despair, he still followed through his destiny. He didn't try to escape from his life or his experience. He didn't run inside and go into some meditative state and hide from the ups and downs of life. And through his human experience, he was able to manifest something quite extraordinary. And again, like I said, after 2,000 years, we're still talking and reading about him. He was extraordinary because he allowed Spirit to fully and totally live in and through and as him, and express itself as him. Now, I might add that there is very clear evidence that Jesus did meditate on a regular basis. As we read the story of Jesus, we see him going into the throngs of people and teaching and healing and doing all of that. And then he would just expend a whole lot of energy and love in his service, but then he would take times on a regular basis to go and recharge his batteries by going out and being by himself and going out and taking time of prayer. So prayer was part of his daily life, and it allowed him to stay connected to the spiritual being, to the truth of who he was. But he did not escape into that and just stay there. He was a very dynamic, fruitful person. So to take human form can be challenging. And Ajah tells us that even for awakened masters, life is not always smooth. Enlightenment doesn't give us a pass on life. And actually, the more we wake up, it seems like the more life gives us, because the challenges that we receive allows us to continue to grow and express our spirituality, express the truth of who we are. The more challenges that we come across, we end up being able to and learn to connect with our spiritual being, to the truth of who we are. And from that space, we align ourselves with the truth of who we are, and we're able to do the work that we're able to do. So the more we take on, the more we grow. And the more life just has this tendency to give us more. Aja says that for many people, spiritual freedom is defined by what we're free from. And I have to admit that in my early stages of spiritual growth, that's how I looked at spiritual freedom. In other words, we can be so transcendent that we're literally free from life. We can avoid all of life's problems by what is sometimes called spiritual bypassing. Instead of facing our problems, we can hide in a state of bliss. We can run off to our meditation cushion. And our problems and our challenges in life are not going to be solved by ignoring or hiding from those problems. But at some point in time, we come to see that our definition of spiritual freedom, being defined as what we're free from, is a relatively immature idea of what freedom is. Aja says only an immature idea of freedom is defined by what we're free from. Something more mature, he says, something that develops and grows within us as we become more spiritually mature, is not a freedom from, but a freedom to. Aja says that we can look at it this way. Are we free enough and open enough to meet life? A big enough freedom to live life, to really stand in our own two shoes, to actually occupy the ground that we're standing on. He says, even though we're not separate, even though the whole universe is contained within us, there's still a human component, an individual person with the capacity to allow spirit to flow out into the world. And we can either be open to that or we can shy away from it. So I bring this talk to a close. I'm going to ask this question. What is it that Spirit wants to express in and through and as you? What is it that Spirit wants to express in and through and as you? The first step to answer this question is to listen. The answer is within you. And Aja tells us to begin to really deeply listen. Develop an intuition of what you need to attend to, what you need to question, what assumptions you need to take a second look at. Aja says we need to stop listening to our minds. Instead, we need to listen to the silence inside of us. Listen to that place where our listening takes us beyond what we think we know. We must really listen at a deeper and deeper level. Aja gives us a second way of exploring our true autonomy and answering our questions. What is it that Spirit wants to express in and through and as you? Is through this inquiry. He says, what do you know that you may not want to know? What do you know that you may not want to know? Because we're all wiser than we pretend to be, and much of the time our wisdom is in those places where we know things aren't comfortable for us, that aren't convenient for us. Aja asks, if we listen to these places, we know that they would pull us out of hiding. They would force us to deal with some situation or with some emotional state within us. Ultimately, real autonomy is a complete allowing of Spirit to inhabit your humanness and a fearless willingness to allow this freedom to happen. This is exactly what Jesus did. There is a freedom to love, a freedom to engage, a freedom even to be disturbed, and a freedom ultimately that allows life to bloom within us, that allows spirit to flow through us in a completely unknown way. And Nadia says, this freedom is unknown to such an extent that you really don't know what you're meant to be because you're too busy being it. Let's prepare ourselves for our time of meditation. Namaste. Thank you. So I invite you right now to just relax and find a place to sit and be comfortable. And I invite you to let go of any thoughts that you might have going on in your head or questions that you have going through your head right now, and just bring your attention to this place and this time. And in this place and in this time, we just take a deep breath, which allows us again to bring ourselves fully to the present moment, the only moment that it is. And in this present moment, we allow ourselves to feel the presence of spirit. We allow ourselves to feel the power of spirit, the peace of spirit, the love of spirit. We are one with the spirit, always one, always connected to spirit and to each other. And in this state of oneness, we just open fully to the power that enfolds us right now, to the love that enfolds us. And we ask ourselves, what is it that Spirit wants to express through us right now? What is it? How does Spirit want to express in and through and as us right now? So we hold that question in our hearts as we take time to just rest for a little while in the silence. So as we allow ourselves to bring our attention back to this place and this time, we just allow our hearts to be fully open. Open to the presence of Spirit, open to the guidance of Spirit. And where there is healing that needs to be done, we open our hearts and minds to the healing that is there for us. If our minds are not at peace, if we are anxious, we open ourselves to the peace of Spirit, that peace of Spirit that is beyond all understanding. And if there's any feeling of emptiness inside, we open our hearts, minds to the fullness, to the love of Spirit right now. And loving Spirit, as we go forth and enter this week, we ask that you keep us, help us to be completely and totally connected with your Spirit, in alignment with your Spirit, and in alignment with your will. for this day and for each person here and for all your blessings. We are grateful and we say thank you in the name of the living Christ presence. Amen.
Reverend David, I really appreciated your call to keep growing and learning and to keep waking up. It is a lifelong process, and it's important to understand that we can lean into what is ours to learn in any given moment. Freedom to versus freedom from really spoke to me. This whole adventure called our lives is leaning into freedom and pressing into our maturity, our wholeness. This is such an inspiring wake-up call. We appreciate you, Reverend David. So it is time for our second song. We are very grateful to Sue Riley and Karen Taylor Good for I Choose Love. Thank you for giving us permission to share this music video.
Peace in my life is growing because I choose love. Love's always present, it's what I'm made of. I choose love. We are a part of each other. We are one tie that binds us, that can't be undone. I choose love. Peace in my family is growing because I choose love. Let love be present, it's what we're made of. I choose love. We are a part of each other. We are one loving family, sharing one son. I choose love. Yes, I do. I choose love. Peace for our planet is growing because I choose love. Let love be present, it's what we're made of. I choose love. We are a part of each other. We are one choice unites us. Let this be the one. I choose love. I choose love. I choose love.
Thank you so much, Sue Riley and Karen Taylor Good, for this awesome song, reminding us once again of the truth of our oneness, which we will always realize as we make that choice to love. Also, our heartfelt gratitude and thanksgiving to all who faithfully continue to support Unity Spiritual Center of Windsor. These financial donations go a long way to prosper all that we do and all whom we reach out to. So thank you for remembering to donate each time that you benefit from one of our events, our classes, or our services. It is so easy to donate with e-transfer or PayPal. So what you can do is use this address, unitycenterwindsor@gmail.com. Or just go to our website, unityofwindsor.org, and click on the blue donate button on the home page. So this will take you to a secure site called Canada Helps, where you can choose to make a one-time love offering, or you can choose to make a recurring financial donation with credit card or debit. So finally, there's the good old-fashioned choice of writing out a check and mailing it in, and you will find our address on the website. So we bless you and we lift you up in gratitude for your generous support. And for those of you who wish to find out more about our ever-expanding variety of classes and social gatherings online, please refer to our weekly newsletter. If you haven't signed up for this newsletter, it's really quite fabulous, and you can do so very easily by emailing us. And again, it's unitycenterwindsor@gmail.com, and we will get you signed up in a jiffy. So let us close our service powerfully with our vision, mission, and our statement of being. So our vision is a world powerfully transformed through the growing movement of shared spiritual awakening. And our mission, we inspire and empower spiritual growth to awaken us and transform the world. And our statement of being, I am a dynamic center of the Christ light, mighty to unfold my good and radiate that good to all. And now let us take a time to bless our financial offerings that have been given and will be given. Divine love in me and through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, Spirit. So it is time for our prayer of protection, which is a very powerful prayer, and we shall pray it together. The light of God surrounds us. I am light. The love of God enfolds us. I am love. The power of God protects us. I am power. The presence of God watches over us. I am presence. Wherever we are, God is. I am divine. Again, from the bottom of our hearts, thank you, Reverend David, for your ongoing inspiration. You are such a blessing to all of us. And we so appreciate the music. Thank you so much, Mike Karloff, Daniel Nahmod, Sue Riley, and Karen Taylor Good. So listen, let us all go forth and have a fabulous week, choosing to live it well. Choose love.